This is ageism, pure and simple. And because Trump colors his hair, he doesn't look quite as old as Biden, but he's virtually the same. And I actually told Biden, I told Four-Star General Barry McCaffrey, I told them both 30 and 40 years ago they should have colored their hair because it makes a huge difference in how people perceive you.
Well, first of all, I mean, everybody's been watching this news conference overnight. How worried are you about President Biden's slip ups, the things that people are talking about, calling Kamala Harris Vice President Trump, introducing President Zelensky as President Putin?
Uh, Biden is a friend of mine. I've known him since we were kids together in our 20s, and I did a youth forum for him in Delaware when he won the closest race in the country for Senate. He's been gaffing since forever. That's what Joe does. And by the way, Trump called Pelosi, Nikki Haley, and talked about sharks and electric boats and being worried about electrocutions from falling off a boat into the water. I mean, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a guy, you know, Biden may have called Zelensky Putin, but Trump talked to Putin before the debate. He was his briefer. And, with Trump, the last voice in is the one he listens to most. So that's what Biden asked. What are we doing here with Trump getting his briefing from Putin for the debate?
I guess the challenge here is that a number of Democrats have come out since this news conference saying that they are concerned. 16 members, I think, at last count of Congress have now said that actually Joe Biden should step aside and no longer run for president. That in itself, that narrative in itself is concerning, isn't it?
Well, first of all, I love you, Chloe, but you're not right. It's not since the debate. That's a total.
Sorry,
Well,
since the press conference, since the press conference.
there's a couple new ones since the press conference, including Jim Hines, who made his decision in the middle of the press conference and said, yeah, Joe did a good job today. He really showed his stuff on foreign policy, but that's not enough. These are people looking for an excuse. And when Jamie Harrison came on, the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, and pointed out that there are 4,000 delegates, Biden's got 87% of them, and I think the number now is 90% of them, committed delegates are going to stay with Biden. That's who they got elected for. And there has been no reason other than the debate itself, which Biden said was terrible. He said that tonight in the news conference. But what a masterclass in foreign policy, from NATO to Southeast Asia to Europe and the coalition, and building NATO with and building the support for Ukraine with 50 countries, and bringing Finland and Sweden into NATO. What a masterclass. And he knew everybody by name. He knew the parameters of the weapons that we were giving to Ukraine and what distances they'd go. And you think Trump could do that? Trump couldn't find Ukraine on a map if he wanted to. So this is the difference between the two in terms of substance and heart and empathy for people. That's what's recognized. I'm still with Jim Clyburn. I think the not Trump factor, the Haley vote, even after she was out of the race, 10 to 15% of Republicans voted against Trump in the primaries after she was out of the race. There are people that will not go. There's an undercount. That's what Democrats know. There's an undercount. And Biden could win instead of the 8 million from last time, with the democracy and healthcare and guns as the issue, and abortion, and the fact that Trump wants to stone women back to the dark ages, in terms of paying no attention to them. Men don't like that either about what Trump's doing to women. So all of that could add up to like a 15 million margin instead of 8. So I think the Democratic undercount that's taken place every election since 2016, it was 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Every election, every state election, every federal election, Democrats have overperformed because the issue is not Trump.
I just wonder, in light of what you've just said about foreign policy and all of the things, the positive things that
Right.
Joe Biden did manage to put in that press conference, is the problem here that it's a perception thing? That despite all of that you've just outlined, what people are talking about is him confusing Kamala Harris with Trump and him confusing Zelensky and Putin. And actually, Perception versus reality, it almost doesn't matter what the reality is. If this is the perception now, if this is the narrative, and that voters week in, week out, up until the election in November, are being told Biden's not up to it. He's not there anymore. You've got George Clooney coming out. You've got various people at different times coming out saying, this is not the man who once stood before us. He needs to pull out. Is that not the problem? That even if this isn't the truth in your eyes, this is the narrative and this is the perception.
Chloe, I was the chief of staff of the House Aging Committee under the great Claude Pepper, and we abolished age discrimination over 40. This is ageism, pure and simple. And because Trump colors his hair, he doesn't look quite as old as Biden, but he's virtually the same. And I actually told Biden, I told Four-Star General Barry McCaffrey, I told them both 30 and 40 years ago they should have colored their hair because it makes a huge difference in how people perceive you. I think you're right. I think it's a matter of perception. But I think the networks are, and maybe you're not seeing them, but the networks are pointing out the clump fumps over and over and over and over, and the stupid things that he says, and the names that he mixes up, and the countries that he mixes up, and the places that he goes where he doesn't know where he is, and is talking like that sometimes. So I think the networks are doing that with Trump. We got 4 months to go in this election. Do you know that Dukakis was 17 up at his convention 2 months from now, equivalent wise, and Bush came on and beat him 17 up. So the polls now don't mean a thing in terms of how the American people will actually vote. And don't forget what I said about the Haley vote. Those are not Trumpers to the end. Those are Dick Cheney and Adam Kinzinger kinds of people that believe the Republicans stand for something, not just a person and a cult.
How worried are you that it's being reported that Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi have spoken privately about President Biden's future? We also understand that before George Clooney wrote his piece, obviously a huge Democrat fundraiser, that he spoke to President Obama in advance and said, this is what I'm going to do. And Obama didn't step in. Does that worry you?
Well, I think negative campaigning works sometimes, and I hate to say it because we've all respected Clooney. I'd say there's more truth to what a lot of the members are saying in terms of their real feelings, but they have not considered that after the debate, and I just wrote up a little list. I remember Biden said he's reading the list of the things about Trump. Raleigh, Morning Joe, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. All of those appearances were fantastic. The debate tonight, in terms of the array of foreign policy that he gave a master class on, that Trump couldn't hold a candle to, and that NATO is fearful for their lives. All the leaders there about what a Trump presidency would mean. I think that's what counts is Biden's presidency. The fact, this is a point that nobody raises, Chloe. All the economists have said after COVID, we're going to have a recession. And Biden stopped a recession by jacking money and programs and policies into the economy. He jacked it up and he defied all the economists and stopped a recession. And now the World Bank says that the U.S. economy is powering the world across the globe. And so that's what Biden has accomplished with his and I remember when he stood there with McConnell, the leader of the Republican leader of the Senate, and the two of them showed the infrastructure bill, the bridge across Kentucky over to the other state. So that's what Biden has accomplished is bipartisan progress and jacking the economy up and stopping a recession, continuing health care, causing insulin to only be $35, which is sort of 35 pounds a month, and other drugs now going into the same bucket of price controls, and people, and inflation today dropping to the lowest levels in 3 years, and unemployment at the lowest level of 50 years. So that's what Biden has accomplished in the economy and in foreign policy. And that's a heck of a record. I was going to use a different H word, but that is a heck of a record that is very strong, and one which Americans are going to come around to, because that's the reality. And when Democrats play the ads, and we got more money than Trump does, which is ironic, but then again, I guess he's gone bankrupt in everything and been shut down with his foundation and his college because of fraud. So maybe it's not a surprise. But we will be putting the ads on, and we will be eclipsing this guy in terms of the issues right and left. And Harris will be the vice presidential nominee, and she will be a debate against whoever Trump picks, and she will clean the clock of the vice presidential nominee.
If Donald Trump wins in November, will you look back and regret backing President Biden?
No, I won't, because he's done a spectacular job, and it would have been Republican PR, and maybe they'll come up with some rabbit out of the hat, like last time, the first time he won, not the second when Biden beat him, but with putting Comey out there and lying and saying it's Hillary's emails they're investigating, and then 10 days later, when it was too late, saying, really, it's the same stuff we found before, it isn't any. So he may do something. He's got Russia in his hip pocket. And people forget they hacked 23 states. It wasn't a minor trivial thing. They didn't get into the voting, but they tried, and they hacked 23 states. So I will regret the fact that this is a con man and a convicted con, and a sex abused convicted person, and a fraud convicted person that somehow the American people have elected. I would be shocked. I think not Trump, Chloe, is the issue, and I think it's going to win for us. So of course you would regret it. But then we go into a whole nother thing, which I told your team this morning. I'm going to be visiting London in late November, and happy to come up, but I hope it's not going to be as how we have to have the Democrats as the resistance, and finding ways to use the courts to make sure Trump doesn't do his stuff that he's promised, and vindictive and vendetta and dictator and all of that, and prosecuting his opponents. What else? Removing all civil servants and stopping women's rights and all of that. If he does
Yeah.
all that stuff, we'll have to be the resistance. And I did a piece. It was named the #1 op-ed in the country by Op-Ed News, on how the media's got to react, because Trump has said he's going to prosecute all the opposing
It will be,
view medias.
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, isn't it? Listen, Bob, thank you so much for your time. I'm really grateful to you.
Pleasure.